Throughout my entire stay on YouTube, no other game has ever been as frequently requested, aside from kids demanding me to return to Cuphead, as 9 Souls. Or 9 Sold as I call it, because man does it deserve more attention beyond just my more niche audience. It's best described as a love child of Hollow Knight and Sekiro, taking many of the best elements of both and spicing it all up with its own meticulously built world and endearing characters. But I know the real reason you all wanted me to play it, and it's the bosses. Well, one in particular, but I think there's some worthwhile encounters to take a look at along the way. However, I decided to exclude the mini-bosses because with only one playthrough's worth of experience and most of the time first trying them, I just don't think I have enough worthwhile commentary for them. All I can say is I enjoyed just about all of them, and they're nice appetizers to keep you from starving before the real meal is served. As for them, I'll have them ranked in tiers, going up from awful up to amazing. But unlike in the last video, we won't be scraping the bottom of the barrel much at all, because as far as I'm concerned, the worst boss in the game, Kanghui, is still far from being a crime against humanity. Or felinity? Felinity? Solinity? Anyway, the best word to describe this encounter would be anxiety. It's felt all throughout the preceding level, with combat being pushed back to a secondary role behind nerve-wracking stealth, and just when you think you can finally get to fight it out the good old-fashioned way, it turns out to be just as anxiety-inducing. Now, anxiety is not an emotion most of us want to opt into when playing a game, yet it can create some memorable moments you look back on fondly, and the feeling of relief upon conquering them can be straight up addicting. However, for me the initial anxiety of battling Kanghui's endless swarm of enemy summons blended with perpetual annoyance, and the relief of ending it never made me want to chase that feeling again. You get gangbanged by nemesis dogs, nemesis flies, and actual nemesis. Dogs essentially make the floor lava, flies make it rain spikes, and Nemesis is just a pain in the ass at any distance. For that, I don't think he fits particularly well with the other two who do complement one another decently well and don't leave much room for someone as attention demanding as him. Any mistake, any moment you want to take to heal is punished with there being no clear cap to just how many of these Giga Chin assholes can spawn. The only breaks you get is in between phases where you hack the machinery holding Kanghui in place. If you fail to stop the flood before the whole screen is a hitbox, it's an unmitigated nightmare and pretty much unmanageable. You'll want to go back to Jiequan's torture chamber. It was much more relaxing. But since the whole idea is to stem their flow, I can't call it bad design. At the very least, you have a strong incentive to plan the fight around the use of your bow, and blasting a whole room full of these fuckers can be pretty satisfying. Still not an overall fun experience with its infuriating fail state and annoying low points. But if you like the bow, it'll come in handy once more with Xingtiang. This time not to clear out a squadron of flying dicks, but rather to stop the Cyclops from healing himself. Again, I think it's nice to add something to encourage strategic play with you needing to save abilities you can use to stun him, but it's mostly in service of dragging out a fight not worth dragging out, as all he's got is weird offbeat Axelam spam and the occasional area denial. I do love the image of his derpy ass face staring at you the whole fight in the background though. Later on in the game he gets a second phase, as well as much more story relevance as he kills a prominent character, his lovable pacifist brother. Made me actually hate this motherfucker, and that's a better incentive to fight than just trying to end the boredom. On top of that, the ceiling goo adds extra position checks and his axelams are a little less predictable. For those reasons, I think he comes out ahead of Kanghui at the very least. Moving up to the decent tier, we start off with Goumang, the Goon Mom, and her 2 boy toys. They're the real boss we fight here, and they follow the duo trope of big and slow and small and fast. It's a trope because it generally works, but at this point you'll have to do a little more than that to really impress me. 2D duos have the unique advantage of being able to surround and do coordinated assaults without the player's visibility of either one being hampered, and I wish that had a stronger use here. They do at times try, but with the fat one always lagging behind, it's much safer and easier to just back away from both and solo the quick one first. Or should I say, Sol-O. Oro Matzo from Hollow Knight comes to mind if you want an example of this type of fight being done really well. Hell, even God Tamer, I think, did this better. It would also help if either of the two were more interesting even on their own, but that's not really the case for me. I think they're quite boring. The one unique spice added in is how Goumang will enter the stage to revive them whenever you deplete one or both of their HP, which allows you to deal damage to the real boss health bar. So you can create a little bit of strategy by either opting for an easier gank fight by killing one at a time, but a harder punish on Goumang, or going for a tougher gank but a safe punish. But I'd also like if there was something to further escalate the threat as the battle progresses. It can get a little repetitive. Number 7, Yingzhao. You know, I appreciate when a tutorial boss doesn't hold your hand, because I think the best way to learn is by letting you fail. You want to get the player to naturally click with the combat so you can throw them at much more demanding challenges later down the line. The sooner, the better. I find that clicking rarely happens when you're designed to win no matter what. It's like learning in theory how things work, but putting it into practice is where you can actually find confidence in your abilities. Yingzhao doesn't teach you anything new really, but rather puts what you've learned on your way to get to him to the test by having long enough reach that disengaging isn't an option. Will say though that with him being my first proper chance to test out the jump counters on crimson attacks with a green flash, I wish he hadn't been put in front of a green background. This made me unsure if his jump down slam was also counterable or not, because I couldn't properly ascertain if there was any green fuckery going on in the quick motion, which it turns out there wasn't. Enjoyment-wise, this was an adequate encounter. It looks cool, sounds good, moves around to warm you up to the idea of always having to face your foe when parrying, but compared to the other Soul fights, this one does the least to represent them as a character or their story. There's not much to pull from this regarding Kuafu, they feel kind of unrelated. The Skyrending Claw, on the other, Claw is a fair bit better tied to Yanlao, who's taking control of the machine and also reintroducing a mechanic from his level, the off-screen sniper. You're rewarded for quickly adapting to the situation and using the sniper against the Claw just like you could with other obstacles before. Only shame about it is you miss out on an attack I think is more fun to dodge than it is to interrupt. Without it, this isn't much of a step up in difficulty from the tutorial challenges. Crimson attacks are easier than ever before, with poor tracking giving you a very lenient dodge timing, and the back and forth charging have as clear of a parry window as you could ever hope for. It desperately needs the moving lasers to create more variables. They require a little bit of forward thinking and mixing dodges with parries. It's really fun when they're there, and I miss them a lot when they're not, which is most of the fight. So, bit of a missed potential. Good music, animations, and growing annoyance with the Yanlao still ensures it's a fight you'll wanna see through. Number 5, G is quite the contrast as a character, whose fight is one you don't want to see through because he's too much of a chill guy to want to kill, but it's his own wish and we gotta grant it, unfortunately. His charitable nature comes through in the battle, with him providing you healing and arrows. Granted, you're able to do a jump counter on the correct symbol as he spins them around. Select the wrong one and you instead have to deal with its corresponding attack. It kinda reminds me of King Dice from Cuphead, where if you're not good at the timing, it's kind of a gamble to see what you get, which can be fun on its own, but learning how to take advantage of it provides a unique skill check as well. So it's fun both while you're learning it and once you've mastered it. I also like the sort of Egyptian astrologist vibes he's got with the symbols and the music, which partway through turns much more tragic, highlighting that this isn't a foe you're fighting, it's a friend you're putting down while giving him one last bit of excitement. All that is great, but when he's on the offense he resembles a mix of a couple different mini-bosses. Not quite on the level of some of the other late-game major bosses. At least his projectile attacks still make you have to quickly adjust your direction, so they're not entirely one note. Apparently he was originally supposed to have a third phase, which could have elevated him to deserved greatness. Jiequan does achieve that greatness, despite having the same problem of no phase 3, and it hurts even more here because 1, it feels he doesn't have enough health, and 2, they fake you out into thinking there will be a third phase, but then psych, he blows up. Maybe for some this came as a great relief since he's quite a tough foe and another health bar would be brutal. But for me it was immensely disappointing for the missed potential of having him be a truly top tier boss. And that disappointment stems from me really liking the first 2 phases and desperately needing more of it. First one has him hold back a bit in order to heal, giving you a chance to heal yourself or charge up an attack to immediately interrupt him. Then he goes Super Saiyan and introduces teleports while ditching the healing gimmick to have a relentless pace. I like his 3-hit combo having varying finishing moves, as well as the bombs that can combo with dagger throws, a charge, or in phase 1, healing. In that instance, you're rewarded for dodging them the hard way, jumping through the gaps in between the bombs rather than just creating some distance from them. My only problem with any of his existing stuff is the hitbox on his spear charge. It doesn't even come close to matching the visual and it removes options for how to dodge it. It's best you just parry or iframe dodge it. Good positioning doesn't really matter. So, that's a bitch.
See, now that's some bullshit.
But I do love me a fast-paced, non-stop flowing battle, and that's what you get here. But only ever so briefly before it's taken away from you. And that's why I think Lady Ethereal deserves a higher spot than him, because she does manage to not understay or overstay her welcome. This is an experience I don't think one can do justice by just describing the battle itself, since a lot of the work for her is done prior to it in her soulscape. Not only is it just a fun level platforming wise, but it gives you a pretty good sense of her character and state of mind. which we begin to crack away at throughout our stay. Not gonna delve deep into it here because really it's best experience yourself rather than having some Finnish asshole in YouTube boiling it down. But point is, there's a hell of a lot of build up to the point where we fight. It's equal parts tragic, horrifying, and beautiful too. And I feel the background alone does a lot of storytelling, with it gradually turning more and more from dreamlike to nightmare-like, and something pulsating and breaking free from the back of her head like a butterfly from a cocoon. I'd assume it's symbolizing something about how her mental state is transforming, but this isn't the time or place for that speculation, so I'll just say, I think it's really cool and perhaps more interesting than her fight, which, while finally having a proper third phase, feels offbeat in its pacing to me. You have notable pauses in between her attack strings where she's not even on the battlefield, and if you have no healing to do, it kinda breaks up the flow as you just stand there holding your dick. I like her second phase the most, where she clones herself and you have no way of knowing which is the real Lady Ethereal other than by attacking them all. So it's not just dodging that's the focus here, which even on its own is pretty fun with patterns that remind me of Mantis Lords from Hollow Knight and Kiana from The Lost Crown. She teleports around, only ever appearing to attack and creating combos with her clones, which can sometimes overlap in a fun way. However, the final phase, while adding some fun new attacks, also removes the need to hunt down the real Ethereal as she's no longer hiding. It means dodging no longer involves mixing in attacks and instead you just have to wait until she reveals herself. That makes it less engaging to me, and it's why I don't think she's quite amazing tier material. Number 2 is the two Fengs found partying till the end, despite one of them, Fushi, having turned into a mindless mutant. He's the foe you go up against directly while his sister/lover, Nue, is chilling in the back and summoning various hazards to complement the big brute. Look, I don't really like incest, but if her own brother has a chance, then surely so do I. While presentation-wise this is far from the level of Lady Ethereal, I do quite enjoy the setting, with other Solarians feverishly indulging in festivities, completely ignoring the state of affairs outside, and, well, inside as well. They don't give a fuck about the ongoing battle. Fushi on his own is pretty good, even if his animations to me felt a little tackier than most. It kind of looks like his arms are animated mostly separately from his body, resulting in a less fluid motion than what I'm used to seeing in Nine Souls. Gotta hand it to him though, his mutated arms have quite a good moveset to make up for it. He's got mix-ups in his combos, the loot slam sound effect was a fun touch, his arms are long enough to be able to attack you from behind even when you're facing him, and his attacks are more delayed than Silksong, making timing the parries quite satisfying. Then you add on top of that Nue's projectiles and snakes that shake things up and create more variables to how you need to deal with Fushi's combos, and you've got yourself a pretty damn exciting sort of duo fight, or a duel with benefits. Nue's additions aren't all created equal, however. The area denial with the electric shocks just means you have to run for a bit while Fushi is passive, never attacking until the effect is over, while the parryable balls are just completely harmless and if anything help you out by giving you more talisman charges. Compare those with snake pillars that recontextualize Fushi's attacks into potentially knocking you too far back into them, requiring careful positioning and potentially dodging as well, or the daggers that fill in gaps between his other combos and force you to change your direction, and it becomes quite clear. RNG is a dirty whore. It's still a ton of fun, and if it wasn't for Eigong, they'd probably be in the amazing tier. But we live in a post-Eigong world, so they're not. This boss is so good she raised my standards for all 2D bosses. This is what excellence looks like, and now I know 2D games can achieve it. Phase 1 alone clears most of the competition with unpredictable attack patterns and absolutely non-stop flow that isn't hampered by arena restrictions, or even the usual downtime you get after jump countering. That's my favorite part about Eigong, the way she's designed to cut down any time waste or pace breakers, as well as take into consideration where successful counters will leave you at. Flow is typically what matters the most to me in 2D fights. It's something my favorite Hollow Knight bosses do well, and Eigong doesn't lack it in the slightest. Not even in her practice phase, and much less so in her second. It's taken a step or 2 or 10 further in the secret third phase you can unlock for the true ending, or by just replaying her in the Battle Memories mode. Here she goes extra anime on you and flashes all around the screen while launching you up, and I love how she's perfectly timed to keep juggling you mid-air. Should you keep successfully countering, that is. And if you do it right, you'll be in an ideal position to deal with her finishing move, whatever that may be, because like with every mechanic she has, they all have combo alterations. This is what rigorous playtesting looks like. This is what making shit up looks like. As a final boss, she does a praiseworthy job putting everything you've learned to the highest skill check, rewarding being able to recognize jump counterable attacks from charge counterables, mixing in dodging, and perfect parries making finishing moves far easier to deal with. Only thing she doesn't test is your patience with multiple targets, but that I am glad to be excluded from the equation. As for the presentation, it's pretty good. I like the background and the music. Can't comment much on the plot because by this point I kinda stopped paying attention. That's the risk you run into when you make an addicting gameplay loop and a story that puts it on pause to drip feed you information. If I'm not 100% immersed in the world, I tend to lose interest in exposition and lore dumps. Maybe that's just me, but I was still able to gather that they took great care in crafting a fully realized universe, and I think it has a lot of good to say. I mostly took away fun gameplay and a handful of good bosses, but I think Eigong will be the only one to really stick with me for years to come. From what I have to compare it with, she's easily the best 2D boss. Next video we'll see how 3D bosses fare in the first Berserker Kazan, which if you saw my community post I was not all that into at first, but I've started to warm up to it since then. That's how you know it's a true Neo-like. So thank you for watching and see you then maybe.